Chapter 4. Rizzo confidently entered the control room, clutching a small rectangular box. Crane was seated at the desk, engrossed in a complex mathematical text from the field of science. Margaret was occupied with embroidery, while Dorothy sat on a cushion on the floor with a box of chocolates nearby, reading a book. "Well, this is a peaceful and cozy scene. It's a shame to disturb it. I just finished sealing and flashing this case, Mart. Let's see if it works. Want to take a look?" Rizzo placed the compass on the plane table, allowing the final bearing to be read on the master circles controlled by the gyroscopes. He then started his stopwatch and pressed a button that applied a small amount of force to the needle. The needle began to spin, and for several minutes there was no apparent change in its motion in either the primary or secondary bearings. "Do you think it's broken after all?" Crane asked with disappointment. "I don't think so," Rizzo replied thoughtfully. "You see, they weren't designed to indicate such distances on such small objects as humans, so I added 1,000,000 ohms in series with the impulse. That reduces the free rotation to less than half an hour and increases the sensitivity to the limit. There, do you see it settling down?" "Yes, it must still be on him," Crane agreed. Finally, the ultra-sensitive needle came to a stop. Rizzo calculated the distance, read the direction, and made a reading on Osnome. "He's definitely there. The bearings match, and the distances are accurate to within a light year, which is as close as we can hope to get on such a small mass as a human. Well, that's that. We can't do anything until we get there. One thing is for sure, Mart. We're not coming straight back home from X." "No, an investigation is necessary," Crane concurred. "Well, that leaves me without a job. What should I do? I don't want to study like you, Mart. I can't do embroidery like Peg. I'm not going to sit on a pillow and eat candy like that blonde over there. I know. I'll build a mechanical teacher and teach Shiro to speak English instead of that jumbled language he uses. What do you think, Mart?" "Don't do it," Dorothy interjected firmly. "He's perfect the way he is. Especially don't do it if he'll talk like you, or can you teach him to write like you?" "Ouch! That's a low blow. However, Mrs. Rizzo, I am capable and willing to defend my customary mode of speech. You realize that the spoken word is fleeting, whereas the thought, once expressed in print, is immortal. It cannot be revised, and its rough edges can never be refined into more subtle, graceful nuances. In my view, the mental effort required to use precise distinctions in language and adhere strictly to grammatical rules should only be reserved for print, given the inescapable conditions of our world." He stopped speaking as Dorothy swiftly rose and flung her pillow at him. "Someone choke him!" she exclaimed. "Maybe you should build it, Dick," she added. "I think he would like it, Dick. He's trying hard to learn, and using a dictionary all the time is surely a nuisance for him," I said. "I'll ask him. Shiro," I called. "Yes, sir." Shiro entered the room from his galley, bowing as he did so. "Would you like to learn to speak English like Crane without taking lessons?" I asked him. Shiro smiled doubtfully, unable to take such an idea seriously. "Yes, it can be done," Crane assured him. "Dr. Rizzo can build a machine that will teach you all at once, if you're interested." "I'm very interested, sir. I've studied for years, but English is so different from Japanese. The dictionary is useful, but extremely cumbersome. If Dr. Rizzo can do it, I would be extremely grateful," Shiro replied, bowing again. "I'll do that little thing for you. See you later, folks. I'm going up to the shop," Crane said before leaving. Day after day, the Bismarck traveled through the vast emptiness of space. Her velocity increased into meaningless figures, even when expressed in thousands of miles per second. Her occupants felt as if they were stationary, but objects within the ship had lost 3/16 of their normal weight. Acceleration had its effect, and the rapidity with which they passed by suns and planets was the only indication of their incredible speed. When the ship was halfway to X, the acceleration was reversed, and the ship began to travel in a direction that seemed down, with a constantly decreasing velocity. A few days after the acceleration was reversed, Rizzo announced that the mechanical educator was complete and brought it into the control room. It looked like a large radio set, but it was infinitely more complex. It had numerous tubes, lamps, photoelectric cells, and coils of peculiar design, as well as dozens of dials and knobs, and a multiple set of head harnesses. "How can something like that work?" Crane asked. "The narrator knows that the machine works, but even after it educated them, they could barely believe it." Dorothy questions why this machine is different from the one Dunark used. The narrator explains that this is an improved model with additional gadgets. The machine operates on a band of frequencies between the longest light and heat waves and the shortest radio waves. The generator produces these waves, and the headsets are stereoscopic transmitters that take or receive a three-dimensional view. Nearly all matter is transparent to these waves, except for cerebin, which is opaque to them. Dunark did not know why the machine worked, but found out through experimentation, just as we found out about electricity. The three-dimensional view is converted into electricity in the headsets, and the resulting modulated wave goes back to the educator. There it is heterodyned with another wave, the exact frequency existing in the optic nerves themselves, and sent to the receiving headset. The result in the brain is clear and permanent, but the drawback is that you don't have the visual memory of what you have learned. Crane understands, but Dorothy asks about the improvements added to the original design. The narrator explains that they had an advantage in knowing that cerebrin was the substance involved, and with that knowledge they could carry matters considerably farther than Dunark could in his original model. They can transfer the thoughts of somebody else to a third party or to a record. This machine can take thoughts away by force, and by increasing plate and grid voltages in the amplifier, they can pretty nearly burn out a man's brain. As I was experimenting with my latest invention, I decided to transfer a portion of my brain onto a magnetized tape for permanent record. However, I discovered that applying even low voltages to the brain became a form of torture that would make the Inquisition seem tame. My colleague Crane was intrigued and asked if I succeeded in the transfer. I replied affirmatively and suggested we try it out with our colleague Shiro. I instructed Shiro to place his head against a screen so I could calibrate his brain for the transfer. After adjusting the dials and attaching electrodes to our heads, I asked Crane if he wanted to learn Japanese while we were at it. He agreed, having found it too difficult to learn during his time in Japan. I activated the machine and spoke a series of explosive syllables in Japanese to Shiro, who responded as though he had never spoken any other language before. When I asked our female colleagues if they wanted to learn anything, Dorothy declined, finding the machine too strange and fearing that she and I would argue about science. Margaret was hesitant to try as well, but before she could answer, an alarm bell rang, indicating a new note. I had never heard that note before, and upon checking the board, I saw that a purple light was flashing slowly, indicating a battleship detector and warning us of danger. We quickly checked the visiplates but found nothing amiss. The purple light continued to flash and the bell continued to ring. I suspected that we were almost at X and wondered if Dunark, our colleague, was behind this. I called him, and he confirmed that he was not generating the signal either. We decided to shut off our radios and edge closer to each other to investigate the source of the signal. Whatever it was dead ahead, and we needed to be organized and cautious, as they may intercept our wave. As we draw nearer, we'll use hand signals. You may not realize it, but you already know them. Direct your strongest spotlight towards me, and I'll do the same. With a click, Dunark's power was abruptly shut off, and Rizzo grinned as he cut his own. That's right, folks. In Osnomian battles, we always used hand signals when we couldn't hear anything, which was most of the time. I know it as well as I know English, now that I'm reminded of it. He adjusted his course to intercept the Osnomian vessel. After a while, a small point of light, moving quickly against the stars, appeared, and the watchers recognized it as the Condal's searchlight. Soon the two ships were side by side, moving forward cautiously. Rizzo set up a 60-inch parabolic reflector, focused on a coil. As they continued, the purple light flashed more and more rapidly, but nothing was visible. Mart, please take the number 6 visiplate. It's telescopic, equivalent to a 20-inch refractor. I'll tell you where to look in a minute. This reflector increases the power of the regular indicator. Rizzo studied meters and adjusted dials. Set it to 19 hours 43 minutes and 271 degrees. He's still too far away to read exactly, but that'll put him in the field of vision. Is this radiation dangerous? Asked Margaret. Not yet. It's too weak. Soon we may be able to feel it, and then I'll throw out a screen against it. When it's strong enough, it's pretty deadly. Mart, do you see anything? I see something, but it's blurry. It's coming into focus now. Yes, it's a spaceship, shaped like a dirigible airship. Dunark, do you see it yet? Rizzo signaled. "Just spotted it. Ready to attack?" Dunark asked. "No, I'm going to run. Let's go, and let's go fast." Dunark signaled frantically, but Rizzo shook his head stubbornly. "A problem?" Crane asked. "Yes, he wants to attack it, but I'm not looking for trouble with a craft like that. It must be 1,000 feet long and is definitely not terrestrial or Osnomian. I say we beat it while we're still in one piece. What do you all think?" "Absolutely," agreed Crane and both women. The bar was reversed, and the Bismarck sped away. The Condal followed, even though the observers could see that Dunark was furious. Rizzo turned number 6 visiplate around, looked once, and turned on the radio. "Well, Dunark," he said grimly, "you got your wish. That ship is coming out, with at least twice the acceleration we could get with both motors full on. He saw us the whole time and was waiting for us. Go on, get away if you can. You can handle a higher acceleration than we can. We'll hold him off as long as possible." "I would if it would help, but it won't. He's so much faster than us that he could catch us anyway, if he wanted to, no matter how much of a head start we had, and it looks like he wants us. 2 of us have a better chance of defeating him if he's looking for trouble. Let's spread out a bit and pretend we can't go any faster. What should we hit him with first?" "Let's hit him with everything at once. Raise 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Crane and Rizzo quickly made contact, with precision and speed. "Heatwave 2, 7, induction 5, 8, oscillation, everything under point 063. All the explosive copper we can get in, right?" "Right. And if things get worse, remember the zone of force. Let him shoot first, because he may be peaceful, but it doesn't look like he's bringing olive branches. Do you both have your screens out?" "Yes. Mart, you take the number 2 visiplate and work the guns. I'll handle the rest. Everyone, strap yourselves in tight. This may get rough." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. As Rizzo spoke, a pyrotechnic display enveloped the entire ship as radiation from the foreign vessel struck the other neutralizing screen and dissipated its force harmlessly in the ether. Rizzo quickly turned on the full power of his refrigerating system and activated the complex offensive armament of his dreadnought of the skies. An intense, livid violet glow hid completely the main and auxiliary power bars, and long flashes leaped between metallic objects in all parts of the vessel. The passengers felt each hair striving to stand on end as the very air became more and more highly charged, and this was but the slight corona, loss of the frightful stream of destruction being hurled at the other space cruiser, now scarcely a mile away. Rizzo stared into the number 1 visiplate, manipulating levers and dials as he drove the Bismarck hither and yon, dodging frantically, while the automatic focusing devices remained centered upon the enemy, and the enormous generators continued to pour forth their deadly frequencies. The bars glowed more fiercely as they were advanced to full working load. The stranger was one blaze of incandescent ionization, but she still fought on, and Rizzo noticed that the pyrometers recording the temperature of the shell were mounting rapidly, in spite of the refrigerators. "Dunark, put everything you've got upon one spot, right on the end of his nose." As the first shell struck the mark, Rizzo concentrated every force at his command upon the designated point. The air in the Bismarck crackled and hissed, and intense violet flames leaped from the bars as they were driven almost to the point of disruption. From the forward end of the strange craft there erupted prominence after prominence of searing, unbearable flame as the terrific charges of explosive copper struck the mark and exploded, liberating instantaneously their millions upon millions of kilowatt-hours of intra-atomic energy. Each prominence enveloped all 3 of the fighting vessels and extended for hundreds of miles out into space, but still the enemy warship continued to hurl forth solid and vibratory destruction. A brilliant orange light flared upon the panel, and Rizzo gasped as he swung his visiplate upon his defenses, which he had supposed impregnable. The outer shield was already down, powered by a mighty copper generator that was working at full capacity. Dark spots had appeared and were spreading rapidly, where there should have been only bright light. The inner shield was now radiating far into the ultraviolet and was definitely doomed. Knowing the immense power driving those shields, he knew that there were superhuman and inconceivable forces being directed against them. His right hand quickly reached for the switch controlling the force field. Despite his speed, much happened in the mere moment that passed before his hand could close the switch. In the last infinitesimal instant of time before the force field closed in, a gaping black hole appeared in the brightness of the inner shield. A small portion of an energy ray so immense that it was palpable struck the exposed flank of the Bismarck like a tangible projectile. Instantly, the refractory arena turned an intense, dazzling white, and more than a foot of the 48-inch skin of the vessel melted away like snow before an oxyacetylene flame. The refrigerating coils lining the hull were of no use against the concentrated energy of that titanic thrust. As Rizzo shut off his power, intense darkness and utter silence closed in, and he switched on the lights. "They take one trick," he blazed, his eyes almost emitting sparks, and leapt for the generators. He had forgotten the efforts of the force field, however, and only sprawled grotesquely in the air until he floated within reach of a line. "Hold everything, Dick!" Crane snapped as Rizzo bent over one of the bars. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to put as heavy bars in these ray generators as they'll stand and go out and get that bird. We can't defeat him with osnomian rays or with our explosive copper, but I can slice that sausage with a force field, and I'm going to do it." "Steady, old man. Take it easy. I see your point, but remember that you must release the force field before you can use it as a weapon. Furthermore, you must discover his exact location and must get close enough to him to use the force field as a weapon, all without its protection. Can those ray screens be made powerful enough to withstand the beam they employed last, even for a second?" "Never thought of that, Mart," Rizzo replied, the fire dying out of his eyes. "I wonder how long the battle lasted." 8 2/10 seconds from first to last, but they had that heavy ray in action only a fraction of 1 second when you cut in the force field. Either they underestimated our strength at first, or it required about 8 seconds to tune in their heavy generators, probably the former. "But we've got to do something, man. We can't just sit here and twiddle our thumbs." "Why not? That course seems eminently wise and proper. Currently it seems that we should just sit here and twiddle our thumbs. But hold on, what if they know about the zone of force? What if they can crack it? What if they try to ram us? Let me address these concerns one by one. First, it doesn't matter if they know about it or not. Second, even if they do know about it, it's highly unlikely they can crack it. It's been up for over 3 minutes now, and they've concentrated everything on us during that time. Third, they won't try to ram us because they probably haven't encountered foreign vessels that can stand against them. Plus, their vessel is most likely damaged from the forces we directed at them. And even if they did try to ram us, the barrier in the ether is impervious and wouldn't transmit the blow. As for working out the new problems in unexplored mathematics, that's your job. We'll go into a huddle and figure this out. Don't worry, Dorothy, the war hasn't even started yet. We've just dug a hole and pulled it in after us. We'll snap out of it and surprise them. Mart, you're the analytical one. Tell me who, what, and where they are. From what little you've seen of them, I'm getting the germ of an idea. And just so you know, they're not from Earth or Osnome. It is clear that they have unlocked the secret of atomic energy. Their ships are not propelled like ours, but rather with a force that acts on every particle of the vessel and its contents." "How do you know that?" interrupted Rizzo. "Because of the acceleration they can withstand. No semi-human and probably no living being could survive it otherwise," I replied. "Furthermore, they are far from home. If they were nearby, the Osnomians would have known of them, especially considering the size of their vessel. Since the green system is close to the center of the galaxy, it's reasonable to assume that they are from a system far from the center, perhaps close to the outer edge. They are highly intelligent, but also treacherous and merciless." "Why?" asked Dorothy, who was listening intently. "I deduce those characteristics from their unprovoked attacks on peaceful ships that are much smaller and supposedly have inferior armaments. This vessel is likely a scout or an exploring ship, since it appears to be alone. It's not unreasonable to imagine that they are on a voyage of discovery, searching for new planets to conquer and colonize. If your deductions are correct, they are terrible neighbors. But are we justified in assuming that they know about the zone of force?" I asked. "That's a tough one. Given what they know, it's hard to see how they could have missed it. But if they've known about it for a long time, wouldn't they be able to get through it? It may be a total barrier in the ether, in which case they'd know that they couldn't do anything as long as we keep it on. It's hard to say, but I believe they know about it and know more than we do," replied Rizzo. I agree with you, and we'll proceed with that assumption. They know that neither they nor we can do anything as long as we maintain the zone. It's a stalemate. They also know that it takes an enormous amount of power to keep the zone in place. Based on our limited data, we must try to come to some conclusion about their current activities. If our assumptions about their nature are correct, they are waiting, probably nearby, until we are forced to release the zone, no matter how long that may take. They know, of course, that we cannot maintain it indefinitely due to our small size and limited resources. I've checked your calculations to 19 decimal places, Mart, and I'm becoming more confident that we can defeat them. I can act quickly when necessary, and my plan is to wait until they let their guard down a bit, and then surprise them. One more idea, and I'll let you go for the day. When will they be least vigilant? That's a tough question, but the answer could be everything. The first attempt will be our best chance. Yes, we should succeed on the first try. We don't have much information to go on, Mart replied. He thought about it for a few minutes before continuing. I think they'll keep all their weapons trained on the force field at first, expecting us to release it right away. Once they realize they're wasting energy, they'll stop attacking, but be very watchful. After a while, they'll go back to their regular routine. Half the crew will probably go off duty, because if they're anything like the beings we know, they need rest. The ones on duty will be extra cautious for a while, but eventually they'll relax and become careless. Toward the end of their shift, because of the battle and long hours, they'll be less vigilant than usual. But we don't know how they perceive time, so it's all speculation. Based on our experience, I'd say we should attack after 12 or 13 hours. Sounds good to me. Great work, Mart. You may have just saved our lives. Let's get some rest for 11 or 12 hours, Dick said. Sleep? How can you sleep, Dick? Dorothy exclaimed.